I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics. I am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee, and Jack Kirby's Star Warriors, The Adventures of Adam Star and the Solar Legion. And all three of those books are available for pre-order in the show notes below.
I'm Matt Zeoli.
So yeah, Paul Reubens died. You know, Pee-wee, famously known for his character Pee-wee Herman, and that's a huge bummer. Just like another person.
Loss in a long line of losses.
It's such an interesting body of work that he did, and like I've been watching like a bunch of YouTube videos and stuff, interviews, and him at various like stages in the development of that character.
That it's so interesting in the development of the character too, because like I got to him when he was on Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Right, yeah.
But
yeah, that was my intro too.
When I was in high school, I was watching on Cinemax the Cheech and Chong movie.
Right.
And I was jarred seeing him, like, it was like I don't know what kind of take it was. It was like Pee-wee Herman, but he wasn't fully doing the character we know. Like a strange version of, which I was digging, but I was like,
that's
what's he doing there?
That's what I've kind of been discovering, like in watching all this stuff. Like I think it was in two Cheech and Chongs, because that's one of the other things that I saw was where he was talking about how he did a Cheech and Chong movie, and then he did another Cheech and Chong movie, and then he wanted to do the Corsican Brothers, the third one, and his agent was like, why do you want to do a Cheech and Chong movie? He's like, well, I want to do a Cheech and Chong, and he's like, I understand wanting to do a Cheech and Chong movie. I understand wanting to do two Cheech and Chong movies. I don't understand wanting to do three Cheech and Chong. Like, what do you get from that?
We have to do the Cheech and Chong episode too.
Yeah,
love those movies.
But yeah, like seeing Pee-wee, because it is like when you see somebody, like you think of Pee-wee as this 80s thing, and then you see him in like a movie from the 70s.
Yeah.
The one that stuck out to me was like seeing him on The Dating Game. Like
I've never seen him on The Dating Game.
He was on The Dating Game. He was on a few times. I only saw the one. But yeah, the character wasn't fully formed. Like it's kind of there, but the voice isn't quite there. And the persona's not quite there. Like it seemed like a big part of it early on was playing up the nervousness. That he's like uncomfortable, like deliberately, like that's part of the character, that he's like uncomfortable on camera. He's uncomfortable on stage. And but the other elements of the character like weren't really there yet.
After he passed, I was like, because it really affected me. I'm like, he's been with us my whole life.
Mm-hmm. Did you have the Pee-wee Herman doll?
I never had the Pee-wee Herman doll, but I remember seeing it in the store, and I would always like. I remember there was a string, I think you pulled on it. I love anything with a string that you would pull. I was into.
Yeah, because he said when he was a kid, he went to see the Howdy Doody show. Okay. Like he was in the audience of the Howdy Doody show, and it is like like it's basically like these like Howdy Doody dolls that were real popular in the 50s. He finally got to have like his own version of that.
He was in the Groundlings,
right? Yeah,
and it's where he kind of met his crew, like Phil Hartman, Cassandra Peterson, who's Elvira, John Paragon, who
John B. the Genie,
and they helped him. I think Paragon and Hartman helped him like bounce the ideas around. And like after he died here, I was trying to like figure out like what makes Pee-wee work.
Yeah,
because I'm very interested. I'm like I started watching a lot of YouTube videos. I'm seeing what the crowd was reacting to. They would react when he does his vocal changes.
Yeah.
Like he does his thing, then he's like, and they would. He fucking kills the character. Kills across the board, and I was like, why is this like work? Like, why is this hitting so hard? Mm-hmm. I love it.
I never thought to deconstruct it, because it's like it's Pee-wee,
so great,
and it works, and it's one of the earliest kind of, comedy things that I ever encountered. So I just kind of take him as he is. But yeah, like that is the vocal changes are part of it. And the contrast and the vocal changes aren't there from the beginning.
No,
that's what just had like
jarring.
one voice. And
in the Cheech and Chong movie, he was talking with his like normal voice. Oh, was he? Kind of. It was almost.
He was Paul Reubens. Did he have like the gray suit?
He had the gray suit, but I felt like he wasn't doing the voice. Mm-hmm. And he was on stage, and he was like flicking off the crowd.
Well, that's just
so strange. I love it.
That's just the thing, because like then, like I was watching a clip of him on Arsenio Hall, and by this point, Pee-wee Mania is already in full. Like the movie happened, and then the TV show happened, and he was on there like promoting the doll.
Yeah,
and so there, it's like fully formed. Like it's got all the things you think of with Pee-wee. You know, he's completely relaxed, doing the thing, and you assume like it's just a good lesson that these kind of like great things don't start out in their finished form. That there is like a road to get there, and when you're watching like even like some of the early David Letterman's. It's not the same. Like the Pee-wee on Arsenio and the first, Pee-wees on Letterman are like, very different.
When I was watching he was like, I couldn't tell because Pee-wee's just Pee-wee.
Yeah, right.
And like people like nobody gives like bats an eye like him in the world.
Yeah.
But like in some of the ones we were watching where he was doing his like appearances or his like show, he was like, I'm a little boy or something.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know that was part of the thing. I was like, he's just fucking Pee-wee.
Yeah,
like,
right. You don't think of like, oh, what is he supposed to be?
Yeah,
like what's he symbolizing? It's like, no, he's just
Pee-wee.
just what
I think
he is.
He's now, but they was doing like
purely. Yeah, but I guess figuring it because that was like that was one of the things he said about like Pee-wee's Big Adventure is like the idea is that Pee-wee's real small, so that's why he's got like the big plate and the big like eating with a big fork. like one of the conceits is he's Pee-wee, he's small. Even though I think Paul Rubens is like 6 feet or something.
Yeah, one of my favorite things that I like would ever see of Pee-wee was he was on the Joan Rivers. I don't know if Joan Rivers was filling in for Johnny or had her own show. I can't remember.
Yeah, it could have been either because she did both.
And it's the Halloween one. I come back to it all the time where he's going through his Halloween campaign. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, that's where she's filling in for Johnny Carson. Yeah, that's great.
And I ended up going on an eBay search for like all the. I was looking up eBay 1985 Frankenstein Pets dispenser and bazooka. Somebody's selling an old like squeezable bazooka gum. Like,
well, that's why like another thing, like him and Tim Burton are like the perfect pairing, for Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Yeah,
because like, and we don't really think of Pee-wee this way, but like Halloween is kind of like us. Like if you look at the way as the playhouse is decorated and his house in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, there's like some Halloween decorations, and then like he would go on Letterman on Halloween. He went on Joan Rivers, and he'd be there in costume sometimes, and it was like Halloween is part of it. Part of it is like nostalgia and kids, and it's like boomer nostalgia. It's like, and it's funny looking at that stuff in the 80s because, and he's a prop comic too.
Oh God,
you don't think of him that way, but yeah, he's a prop, maybe the greatest prop comic.
I'm
of all time.
Carrot Top mega fan. Mm-hmm. I love prop comics.
Yeah, Gallagher. R.I.P. And if you think about the Pee-wee timeline, like Gallagher is kind of a big deal, and then like Pee-wee breaks big a little bit after that. So it there could be some like, we live in such a different world now where like you just the stuff from your childhood is ever present. Like they're still making like they're making Michael Keaton Batman movies still. You know what I mean? Like, but back then it was like sometimes it would like blow people's mind. Like he'd pull out like an Etch-a-Sketch or something. It's like, oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
Whoa, Etch-a-Sketch. Or Hugo, the Hugo doll.
Because you couldn't see it at all.
Yeah.
It was you
like
might have gone years without seeing it.
Yeah, that was part of it. Or like he'd throw out Tootsie Rolls. It's like, I remember Tootsie Rolls when I was a kid.
It's like, do you have something else to say? Amazing Larry. And the guy has like a mohawk.
Right.
Like the random guy with a mohawk.
Yeah,
Amazing Larry.
His whole world. I'd always hear about like these different movies that he wanted to make, because like there was this long period of time between, I guess, Big Top Pee-wee, like Big Top Pee-wee, and then the Pee-wee's Holiday or whatever it was.
It was the
Netflix Pee-wee,
which I
thing
still haven't seen.
Paul
That
Oh, you haven't seen it? Yeah. Yeah, with Paul Rust in it, who could play Pee-wee Herman.
I love Paul Rust. He co-wrote it.
Did you ever see Love?
No.
Okay, that's a great show. Like that's a really good show.
I end up on their like In Myers We Trust with Corley and Russ.
Yeah.
I end up getting a little like I think it was on their like mailbag episode with my Brady Bunch Halloween.
That's right.
Theory.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
it was my cockamamie theory about John Carpenter copying the Tiki episode.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you should check out Love, because there's an episode where they go on a Hollywood tour, and they see like the Halloween house, the house from Halloween.
Oh shit,
and
that's
then,
awesome.
And then on the tour, like as part of this tour, is the guy who played Michael Myers. It's not. I don't think it's the real guy. I think it's like an actor, like pretending to be the guy who was in the Michael Myers suit. Yeah, and so it's pretty funny episode because like they're like super geeking out, like, oh my god, it's Michael Myers,
dude. Hell yeah! Like that gets me so pumped because that kind of relates to Happy Days season 2.
Yeah,
because there's like Halloween
episode,
and it's very reminiscent.
Save that because I want to talk about that exact thing. We'll do that episode, but yeah, save that. Like Pee-wee's Big Adventure, home run. I still haven't seen Big Top Pee-wee. I want to. It's on HBO, or it was on HBO. Like last I checked,
I watched that a lot.
Yeah, I never saw Big Top Pee-wee, and that is like because he grew up. Paul Rubens grew up near Ringling Brothers or whatever, and when he was a kid, he went to circus camp and he learned how to walk a tightrope and all that kind of stuff. So that feels like that. Like I don't know why it took me this long. Like, and I still haven't seen that, but.
It has, I think, if I remember, Benicio del Toro's in it. He plays like the Wolfman, or like, or pre Wolfman. He's like the dog face boy or whatever.
And it's good. Is it good? Or not? Or it's like challenging? Or?
No, I remember. I mean, like, honestly, I probably haven't watched it since I was little.
Okay.
But I've watched this like a trillion times.
Oh, sure. Well, because this is the classic. This is the gold standard. Like, I remember when Big Top Pee-wee came out, and I was a huge Pee-wee fan, huge fan of this, a Big Adventure, a huge fan of the Pee-wee's Playhouse. But when Big Top Pee-wee came out, it just, like, I just wasn't interested. Like, it seemed, like, just the commercials and stuff, it seemed like
it has a different feel.
Yeah.
It has a different feel to it. Like, this movie's such a special movie. Like, they talk about, like, firing on all cylinders and, like, just, like, everything works in it.
And he knew it. Like, Paul Rubens was telling a story of, like, when they were filming the scene with, like, the dinosaurs where, like, Large Marge's truck, like, pulls away, and then it reveals these, like, lit up dinosaur statues or whatever. He said when they filmed that, he like started crying, like he started tearing because like he knew he was making a classic. Like
that's amazing.
There's moments where people are making some great work of art and he knew it, like
in that
moment. Yeah,
there's just so many things that like I obsess with and like uncover as the years go by. Like
it's lightning is in a bottle, and you appreciate so much more like watching it as a grown up.
Like, I always wanted, like, the prank, like, stuff that he gives to Francis and his dad, like, the gum and stuff.
Well, because I realized it's like a James Bond movie, and he does say James Bond kind of stuff,
Oh, well, we'll get, it has,
yeah.
So, this movie...
But it is a James Bond, because he has his cue. Like, he goes to the magic shop, and that's, like, the quartermaster, where he's, like, getting all his gadgets that are going to help him out.
This is an official James Bond movie, because... James Brolin was going to star in Octopussy.
Yeah.
And they rejected him at the last minute. And this came out, like, within the 2-year time frame. And James Brolin is in this movie as he would have looked in James Bond, playing a James... So we get him as James Bond in this movie with, I think it's Morgan Fairchild he's with.
Yeah, I was watching he must have sort of, like, kept in touch with different people. Because Paul Rubens was doing he was doing, like, a Pee-wee stand-up routine on some like TV special that was like hosted by Morgan Fairchild or something, and so like he must have been like, okay, I'm gonna save her phone number. And,
like I wanted that the ships, the toys, and then he's like, we covered the Pee-wee Christmas special. What a cast too. Like he always brings in like interesting like supporting characters. This always scared me too. Pee-wee can get dangerous. Like,
that's what I was going to say. Like, you talk about the vocal shifts. There's like tone shifts and personality shifts within Pee-wee because he is kind of like a goofball and like sweet and kindly, and then he turns nasty. Like he'll turn like nasty in a second, And he's like ready to murder Francis.
He's got a nice fucking hair. Like he comes to the pool and he's have like monogram like jumpsuits.
So like he had these movies that never got to make. Maybe posthumously there'll be some kind of maybe it'll be a book, or maybe do a comic or animated, or like maybe they'll do something. But he had a couple Pee-wee projects, and one of them was like it was like a Pee-wee road movie. Like one of the things he wanted to do was make like a movie version of Pee-wee's Playhouse. So one concept was like a road movie, like Pee-wee's Big Adventure, but it's like him and the whole Playhouse gang. So it's like him and Cherry, hitchhiking or whatever, like in our world or whatever. But then the other like I think that was like an earlier one, like a little more budget conscious.
Yeah.
But then he had this really ambitious one where it would have been like Wizard of Oz or something, but it was like, what is outside the Playhouse? So it was going to be this like epic fantasy, like Puppet Land. They talk about, Puppet Land, you're the most beautiful woman in Puppet Land. Like, so they were going to leave the Playhouse and explore Puppet Land and go on this big quest.
Super cool.
And he said there was going to be trolls in it, mermaids, zombies.
That's
like it was
awesome.
This epic fantasy in that world. Couldn't get that made. He said like it was really hard to get any kind of Pee-wee movie made because people would keep saying like, that's 100 years old. Pee-wee's from the 80s. Nobody cares. And so that's why he started doing that stage show again. He had that show on Broadway because he said like, and he kind of baldly stated this, that it's like, he said, I'm trying to like, get some heat under Pee-wee, like freshen Pee-wee up. And then he did get the Netflix movie Judd Apatow produced. But the other one that it's a real shame we didn't get, and like I wish we would have got, like I wish this would have been at the top of the list. I wish this is the one Apatow would have done or something. But it was his dark Pee-wee movie, and it would have been like Pee-wee at Sunset Boulevard, which like just would have been too perfect. It would have been so great, and it would have been completely different from all the other Pee-wee movies, but sort of connected. And like the idea of being, Pee-wee becomes super famous and turns into a monster.
Oh, that's just too delicious.
And it would also work too because it would have been like a mature Paul Rubens. So it's like you get the contrast of like us remembering what Pee-wee used to look like, and then we get, like you see it, the same way Gloria Swanson works in Sunset Boulevard, because it's like she was a real like silent movie actress and stuff, and you see it's just like she's grown into that role that she played, but it would have been the same with Pee-wee, where it's like, ooh, how this might not be that far from real life, so that never got made. But perfect. I mean, the script exists, so maybe we gotta track that down, form of it. But then Judd Apatow and Paul Rust, like what they wanted to make with Pee-wee was just like a feel good, like let's get back to like the Pee-wee we know and love, the Pee-wee's Big Adventure Pee-wee, and do that.
I need to watch that. I don't know. I just let it fall by the wayside.
Well, it's interesting. Like I like their thinking, and I love the fact that there's this other Pee-wee movie, and it was a lot of fun. It was funny. It was good, but it's like it's so close to, and it's so in the world of like classic Pee-wee, that it's got the uncanny valley thing of where all your attention is on what's different. And so it is like, it's an older Paul Rubens who doesn't quite have the vocal range anymore, doesn't move as fast, isn't,
it's like so much physical comedy in this. Like
he has to
tiring.
He has to compete with like his 35-year-old self, essentially in that movie. So like, if they had done the dark Pee-wee movie, there wouldn't like the difference between the two is part of what makes it work. Whereas with this, they were kind of trying to pretend that like a bunch of time and a bunch of mileage hasn't happened, and like and so it was like a little bit of a bummer that way. Like it was hard to kind of leave that behind.
Maybe that was subconsciously kind of like.
And he was doing interviews, and I still like, he's so dry. Like he is such a master comedian. I still don't know if he was like screwing around or not, if this was a joke or not. But he said it a couple of times on a couple different shows that Netflix Pee-wee movie, that they used similar technology that they used in The Irishman, that they used de-aging on him. And I still don't know if it's true or not because it does.
I don't. I think he was pulling our leg. They're like,
but that was like because again like. Because I saw him telling it to like Conan O'Brien, saying they used, and this was like after The Irishman came out, so I thought
That's
like, okay,
hilarious.
that's a joke. But then I was watching this like older thing where he's saying, we're using this like digital de-aging technology in it. And stuff. I'm not supposed to tell anybody, but it's like you kind of see what I look like now, and then you see
The Irishman de-aging. Pee-wee's comeback special 76.
Well, because like, and I mean, I can kind of believe it too. Because Robert De Niro de-aged in The Irishman doesn't look like young Robert De Niro. He looks like, if you're smoothing out current day Robert De Niro. And I could kind of see it with Pee-wee.
That's interesting. That would, I'm now that when I watch it, I'm gonna look for the possible.
Yeah, we'll kind of put a pin in that. Watch it, and we'll talk about it.
One of the best parts when he's like.
Yeah, all this stuff, like, as a kid watching this, you're kind of like, oh, I could use that. Like, if I were getting into trouble.
Yes.
Like,
he gets taken for a ride. Mm-hmm. She's like, you're looking for something. And he's like, oh my God. Gives her all her money.
I'm thinking about Big Top Pee-wee. And I think maybe why the world rejected it. It didn't do very well. Oh, he was also in Back to the Beach singing "The Bird Is the Word."
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
shit.
And he was all over the commercial. Like he's in that movie for 2 seconds. It's like this 80s nostalgia for like the old beach movies of the 60s with Annette Funicello in it. And
you're right. Remember, he keeps in touch with Morgan Fairchild. Kept in touch with Annette and Frankie because they were in the Christmas special. He really
Yeah, he's got his
loyal.
And he's got his players, but he's in there. He sings "The Bird Is the Word" in this movie, but like the commercial for Back to the Beach, you would think he was like the star of it. He was like all over the commercial, even though he's in the movie for 2 seconds. But he is good in singing "The Bird Is the Word."
When I was little, I would, and also like 3 weeks ago, I would practice the tequila dance.
Watching all these David Letterman appearances, he like workshops the shoe dance because he has a couple of. He's like, oh, I got this shoe dance, and he's wearing crazy shoes, and then he's like, okay, I got this other shoe dance. Like he would do all these different shoe dances. None of them were like there'd be a little bit of the thing, and then he did like one in high heels. He did like a high heel. That was like the third shoe dance. So he's working on like wacky shoe dances.
And I always thought I didn't realize he created that. I thought that was the dance that goes with tequila.
Right.
It was
because that nostalgia, that period that he is nostalgic for, it's like the 50s and early 60s, maybe a little late 60s too. It's like 50s and 60s stuff. And they would have, and you see it in Hairspray, in the movie Hairspray, where they'd have these dance crazes that became kind of formulaic and manufactured. And so every week there'd be some new dance. I wouldn't doubt if it wasn't one that was that.
When you talk about using the hiss to fight off your enemies, I thought that if I get into a bind, I can do the tequila dance
and win everybody else.
Save my ass when there's a group of toughs ready to kick my ass. If I just do the tequila, I'll get out unscathed. They're like, you're dead, and I'm like, check this out. And then it shows me getting dumped into the dumpster. I'm like, that didn't work out as I planned.
In Big Top Pee-wee, it was Pee-wee had his sexual awakening or something. Because the commercials for Big Top Pee-wee is him, trying to make out with a girl or something, and it was wait, Pee-wee doesn't do that. That's that.
It was hilarious when he's fighting off Dottie's dances.
Right, exactly. But I guess maybe it's this Pee-wee character has to have some kind of arc, and so maybe it's Pee-wee is ready for that now.
Well, but it makes me want to watch him more than ever now. I like when he's like, Mickey, a footlong.
There's in Pee-wee's Playhouse. It might even be the first episode, but he's doing he sets up a salad bar in the Playhouse, and he's getting different stuff for his salad, and then he's like, ooh, beans, and he adds some beans, and then he goes like this like very like half-hearted sound, and I think it had to be like network practices or censors saying, okay, there's a lot, if it's too much of a fart sound, you can, so if he was like, or something, no, we can. So he had to do. It's like it's only the faintest hint of like a fart sound. Like you have to kind of, but he's so. But I think that was all they would let him do. He couldn't go.
That's hilarious. I was doing a bit where like I saw somebody was they were on a news show, a local news show, and they said wazoo on television, and I was like, I was like, so you can't say wazoo on television.
On CBS, Kids Saturday Morning. So Pee Wee, could only go when he's talking about beans.
Yeah.
But, a year later or something, you have, hey, Vern, it's Ernest.
Oh, my God.
And then every episode has the guy go, like, I guess because he wasn't talking about beans. Like, because he would set up the context he'd say, like, oh, it's the sound of, like, a pumpkin getting smashed or something.
I would do, hey, Vern, it's Ernest farts.
Yeah.
And then, like, I would mimic the stuff from this movie, too, when he's making his breakfast, he goes, Mr. Munchin Man.
Did you ever have Mr. T cereal?
No.
Okay, I had Mr. T
Oh my
cereal.
God, it's the dream.
And you know what? It's like, by the time, like there was Mr. T cereal, and then by the time this movie came out, it was like, maybe a year after like the Mr. T cartoon. But by that, it felt like Mr. T was like passé. So it's almost like, I think, when they made the movie, it was a current reference, but by the time it came out, it was like a little bit retro.
Yes. And it's come back around again.
Yeah, now it's just a classic, yeah.
Mickey.
Like the choice of Mr. T cereal is just like a perfect choice.
It's like evergreen.
Yeah.
And that box is shown so prominently.
Mm-hmm. I pity the poor fool who doesn't eat my cereal.
I remember saying that at the lunch table in like 7th grade.
Well, I'm trying to remember what grade it was, but one of our teachers was like leaving this, like, she's going on to some other career or something. But there was a teacher who was leaving. And so we were we put on this skit, this like show as sort of like a goodbye show. Awesome. And my contribution was I did like a stand-up. I did impressions is what I call. I did impressions. And so I did a bunch of like impressions, and one of them was Pee Wee Herman, and I did do the Good Morning, Mr. Breakfast. Good morning, Mr. Breakfast.
Mr. Munchin, does he say?
No, he calls him Mr. Breakfast.
Oh, Mr. Breakfast.
He says munch, 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 but he's Mr. Breakfast. Good morning, Mr. Breakfast. Hi, Pee Wee.
I pity the fool.
I pity the poor fool who doesn't eat my cereal.
That's what.
Yeah, Pee Wee just takes like two
bites, and I like his knife is like really bendy when he's buttering
this giant knife, and that's like part of the gag is that he's got this elaborate like Rube Goldberg kind of thing to devise his breakfast, and then he takes 2 bites of it. But it's also the thing of like, oh yeah, Pee Wee's this little, like he doesn't need to eat much, he's just this little tiny guy in a big world.
I love all the surreal shit like. Parachuting. I think about that anytime I see a convertible. I'm like, I wonder how it would do on a cliff fall. Like,
this is a little bit like Pulp Fiction too. It's got a lot. It's kind of got a lot of like those elements of that era and the kind of cars and the kitsch, and some of it is like realism and some of it is like kind of deliberately fake. You know? Like the bad rear projection and stuff in the car scene and stuff,
And then there's like stop motion, and the clowns when he has that nightmare is just like terrifying.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what it was like when I was, Tim Burton's using those weird like the Dutch angles or whatever. Right. When I'm watching it when I'm little, like especially that scene where Francis is like conspiring with that guy and he walks the bike out and it's real low and I'm like, why is this fucking like frightening me to my core? Like, or the clown is then shot after his bike gets stolen. I'm like, you're scaring me, Tim.
It's got the film noir thing of like Francis steals the bike and then doesn't even get to keep it, like he's guilty, so disgusted with himself for doing it, and afraid of getting caught and stuff that he's just like, get it out of here.
He gets ejected, the ejector seat at the very end.
You also get the thing that like we talked about for Labyrinth, where the movie almost ends before it begins because he's in the car and then the truck's passing by and there's the bike and all he has to do is turn his head this way and like the movie's over. There's his bike, but he's just
talking,
oblivious.
I always get excited when I see him and stuff. Like for the longest time, it was just like he deliberately kind of like stayed under the radar, but like he would pop up and stuff, and you would get excited when you'd see him. Like I saw him on 30 Rock, and I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And then I saw Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but I had started watching it after the credits started for the very first time. So when he popped up in it, I was like, is that Paul Rubens? Holy shit.
That's nice, because that would kind of suck if, if you saw in the credits, like, oh, Paul Rubens, like in the opening credits, and so you were ready, but for it to be a surprise is great. Like when I was, when I first saw Inglourious Bastards, and then in the credits it says Mike Myers, and I'm like, what? Like I would have liked that to be a surprise that like Mike Myers was going to show up in the movie.
He's like he has like old man makeup on,
right? But he is doing like one of his Saturday Night Live characters. He's doing the.
So I married an ex.
Well, he's doing the toothpaste you can eat, the British toothpaste.
Oh yeah,
he's doing that character, the British toothpaste where they smile.
I always love when I think he was like the soccer hooligans guys, where it was where they have like the vomit thing connected to your wrist, and you. Yeah. I love they're like puking on somebody's head.
I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics. I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee, and Jack Kirby's Star Warriors, The Adventures of Adam Star and the Solar Legion. And all three of those books are available for pre-order by following the pre-order links in the show notes below.
I'm Matt Zeoli.
And follow me on Twitter at Tom Scioli, on Instagram at Tom_Scioli, and support my Patreon. Go to patreon.com and search Tom Scioli.
Follow the show on Instagram at total_recall_show.
And there goes that shot where the Large Marge's truck pulls out, and then you see those dinosaurs. Like, yeah, this is going to be great.
It's a classic.
We know you are, but what are we?